Alachua County's first poet laureate. Now that is a very big, a very important position. He was appointed by the city commissioners to help spread his philosophy on life, on all of the things that he has been involved in, and the many educational youth programs that he has been working with. So I just wanted to tell you that he is a very, very interesting man. We are fortunate at the Matheson Museum to have him as one of our newer board members. So we're happy to work with him. Stanley has a radio talk show program. He has been involved with the Black Arts Movement, and he organizes a group called Art Speaks, which holds 2 or 3 events a year, trying to prepare students in a competitive way to become other world famous poets like he is. So may I please address you to our assistant, Caitlin Hoff-Mahoney, who is standing by, and she would like to give you a little bit of information about how you can ask questions of Stanley as we proceed through the program. So again, welcome, so glad you're here, and take it away, Caitlin.
Thanks, Dixie. So we are running this as a webinar today. So if you are here with us watching on Zoom, you can ask questions using either the chat box or the Q&A box down at the bottom. And I will share those with Stan at the end of his prepared remarks. We are also live streaming this on Facebook right now. So if you're watching it with us there, you can put any questions in the comment box, and I will be monitoring that as well. And then as an additional note, we have attending the program today, Frankie Rosenthal, who is a UF journalism student who's writing a story about this event. And she would love to be able to talk to some of the attendees afterwards. So I am putting her contact information into the chat box. And if you are interested in talking to her, you can either reach out to her directly, or if you let me know, I can give her the email address that you used to register for this program. So that is the end of the technical housekeeping. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stan.
Hey, good evening. You hear me okay? Good, good. Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you to the Matheson History Museum of Alachua County. Thank you to our other sponsors, Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, the Florida Council of the Arts, and the State of Florida Division of Cultural Affairs. Once again, thank you, and welcome to this evening's presentation / discussion / poetry reading. Poems in the Key of Movement, from Civil Rights to Black Lives Matter. Early on, I didn't quite know what I was going to talk about this evening. It was quite a while ago when we decided to do these speaking engagements, and I knew we had an election on the horizon, and I had no idea what the climate was going to be like this evening. So what I decided to do was just talk about poetry in general, and talk about the Black Arts Movement of the '60s, and maybe how it correlates to what's happening now in our environment and with the movement for Black lives. So I'll just give a brief overview of the Black Arts Movement, and scatter some poetry here and there, and maybe at the end, if we have time, just share some poetry with you also. But it should be, I shouldn't take up too much time. It should be fairly quick process. Light Blue Child, a poem. Light blue child, will you ever heal? Your body covered in gray mountains, raised up scars, hills and valleys, passed down moanings, passed down groanings. Generations weep, gifts of pain carved into the forehead of your wallowing children, tokens of unsettled grievances. Light blue child, will you ever heal? Toiling fields, toiling fields, toiling fields morph into thick corner, sagging city streets, crowded high-rise fall into desperate slum, all day, all night long. Your dreams whipped, broken future chained to memory's auction block, dangling torsos swinging, fire and cross, hard wood and twisted knot, braided rope, stretching down through bloodlines into how many yesteryears, how many tomorrows, still filled with dark and grueling illiterate mine shafts, bales of waiting cotton, barns of curing tobacco, long rows of bent over blue mussel, buckets of bitter breast milk, cream for master's coffee still on the kitchen table even now after all these years, agonizing over what was spilt. Your diluted God buried somewhere, too deep to rise. Light blue child, will you ever heal? Some of my earliest memories of death and Black bodies. 14-year-old Emmett Till was brutally murdered in 1955. His disfigured, mutilated, bloated body discovered, retrieved, pulled from the Tallahatchie River. His mother, Mamie Till Bradley, insisted on an open casket, showing the world the horrific barbarism of America and a vivid view of American racism and its so-called system of justice. Emmett Till's murderers would be found not guilty by an all-white jury of their peers and set free. No doubt, Emmett Till's brutal murder is a seminal event that galvanized the American civil rights movement. Emmett Till was savagely murdered in 1955. 7 years later, in 1962, I am born into this world. It seems I was born into the bosom of death and protest. All around me, things falling and arranging, voices frantic and hushed, whispers, fingers pointing at black and white television screens. Me, always looking up at hands clutched over gasped mouths, grown-ups cupping tears. More death will follow. 1963, President John F. Kennedy assassinated. 1963, Medgar Evers assassinated. 1963, 16th Street church bombing, killing 4 little girls, children, Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair. 1964, Freedom Riders, Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner murdered. 1965, Malcolm X assassinated. 1968, Senator Bobby Kennedy assassinated. 1968, the radical dreamer Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated. What follows? Protests and riots across America. Cities large and small erupted with civil and racial unrest. The only weapon that we have in our hands this evening is protest. Martin Luther King Jr. A riot is the language of the unheard. Martin Luther King Jr. A reckoning, a poem. Ever since I was a little boy, I could see ghosts clear on the other side. I dare not tell anyone. Don't know why I'm telling you now. I guess 'cause it's truth-telling time. When I saw her, the apparition, I was down over there, just through that wooded path, not far from the big house. She was adorned in black sackcloth and tattered lace. Her face, old and rugged, beautiful, long ago been through canyons. Her hair, waist long, swamp moss. She was standing on cypress legs, knee deep in the waters. She was at least 4 grandmothers old. She moved with a rhythm, sure, strong and smooth, swaying pine. When she spoke, her voice, wise, broad and tall, raspy like cured split oak and soft chains rattling. Thunder. You all right, son? Don't you fret none. Everything gonna be all right after a while, by and by. I done seen it before, a few times. Souls stirred to a boil. Pot can't contain it no more. You can't put no lid on it. It's an uprising. Don't you fret none. Go on, run along now. You can't stop the boiling over. Just get my children ready. It's a reckoning. You see Massa whisper in his ear. Tell him, ma'am say, is he ready to get baptized? The events of the 60s will have a profound effect on the entire nation and specifically African-American artists. Shook and awakened by the 1965 assassination of Malcolm X, beat poet Leroy Jones, living in Greenwich Village, New York. He will later change his name to Amiri Baraka. He leaves the village and relocates to Harlem, where he founds the Black Arts Repertory Theater, providing a space for Black artists, poets, playwrights, musicians, and visual artists to congregate and create. The founding of this space is considered to be the beginning of the Black arts movement. Poet Larry Neal, who accompanies Amiri Baraka to Harlem, will write the Black arts movement essay, a manifesto, where he describes the Black arts movement as the aesthetic and spiritual sister of the Black Power movement. The Black arts movement advocated for a distinctive Black aesthetic where Black artists created for a Black audience. believing that artistic production is a vital component to Black people's economic, political, and cultural empowerment. The Black arts movement, viewed by some as a radical break away from the civil rights movement that sought integration. The Black arts movement encouraged the improvement of African American communities rather than integration and acceptance, according to white standards. The Black arts movement believed in cultivating racial dignity and self-reliance, also recognizing that the standards of beauty and self-esteem were integral to power relations. The Black arts movement sought to create confidence in the Black community, and it rebelled against all Eurocentric assumptions concerning art and standards of beauty. Bradley research. The Black arts movement is best known for its poetry, spanning from the mid-1960s to 1970s. Poets such as Gwendolyn Brooks, who was the first African American to receive a Pulitzer Prize for poetry in 1950, who was similarly affected by the assassination of Black leaders during the 1960s. Influenced by the Black arts movement, she left her longtime mainstream white publishing company, Harper and Row, in 1969 to publish her work under Broadside Press, a small Black-owned publishing company based in Detroit, Michigan, where she made a conscious decision to create art for Black audiences. Other poets of the Black arts movement, Jay Wright, Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, Etheridge Knight, Audre Lorde, June Jordan, James Baldwin, Ntozake Shange, Haki Madhubuti, Lorenzo Thomas, Sonia Sanchez, Henry Dumas, Jane Cortez, Bell Hooks, and others. The poet Henry Dumas, who was shot and killed in 1968 by New York Transit Police in a subway platform at the 125th and Lenox Avenue station. He was 33 years old. All these walls oppression builds will have to go. Langston Hughes. Old battles are new again. Progress, it seems, is elusive. Inheritance, a poem. Forgive me. How long have we been rolling our song up this hill, only to have it rolled back again into our never-ending poetry? Our melodies rearranged, elements of the same tune, our song recreated with each new generation. Light Blue, a poem. Just look at us and all of our sacred shit shattered to pieces, scattered about, sprinkled over eons. Just look at us and all of our broken backstory, our hidden legacy piled high as forever. Tell me, how will we ever pick us all up again, put us all back to people again? We, chosen to be eternally forgetful, disobedient, and forgiven? How many times repentance? How long repentance? Just look at us, divine, light blue, child of mine. Our dreams, a poem. Our dreams are twined with death, bloody aspirations, casualties, martyrs piled high upon the heap of hope. We wade waist deep in perennial struggle. Amiri Baraka believed that the most impactful political work you can do is through the arts. And just as the poets of the 1960s were moved, inspired by the turbulent events of their time, so too are the poets of today's movement for Black lives, who continue to speak truth to power. Many in the tradition of the spoken word poetry inspired by artists like Gil Scott-Heron and the Last Poets and others. What makes poetry and song such a necessary and sought after art form in times of protest and civil unrest? Poetry is both portable and compact. All you need is your voice, and in the 21st century, maybe a social media platform. And poetry, like all political language, is most often spoken with intention. Poet Audre Lorde said concerning poetry, poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence. It forms the quality of the light within, which we predicate our hopes and dreams toward survival and change. First made into language, then into idea, then into more tangible action. Poetry is the way we help give name to the nameless, so it can be thought. The farthest horizon of our hopes and fears are cobbled by our poems, carved from the rock experiences of our daily lives. When asked about the significance of poetry and music, civil rights veteran Congressman John Lewis stated that without poetry, Selma and the civil rights movement would have been like a bird without wings. Thank you. That is the end of my little presentation, but I have poems that I have written this year. Mostly are centered around the events, deaths of unarmed Black citizens at the hands of police and maybe the coronavirus. So if we have, I'm not sure how much time we have. I think I was fairly swift and quick, so we may have time, but I can read some poems. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. It's only 7:30. So, these programs usually run about an hour. So if you want to take some more time to read some more poems.
Oh yeah, we're gonna read some more poems.
Or for people in the audience, if you have some questions that you want to put into the chat or the Q&A box, and then we can go ahead and get that started as well.
Cool, we'll read some poems. This is a poem called Elijah. And I wrote this when Elijah McClain was killed by police. Elijah. Imagine splendor, the nightingale, a morning bird sings a midnight song to entertain the unacquainted, strangers unaware. Feral cats croon calm lullabies for shelter. a last serenade in the cold pandemic. A Cushite plays violin in the park. Imagine splendor. Flailing wings, heaven sings. Young, slender, black, tender. An idiosyncratic stroll. Looks divine, angel strange. But you were never told of the beauty in your midst. Imagine splendor. Our sun, mask, suspicion, mistaken monster in the night. Imagine splendor. Our sun, a stereotypical profile. Someone dials 911, then a little while, a figure lay dead in the dark. Imagine splendor. Our joy, our innocence, beautiful and weird, weird and beautiful, just walking to the corner store for tea. This poem I wrote when I was sitting in front of the television and I watched a policeman kneel on the neck of George Floyd, and it's called 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Excuse me. That's the thing when you write, when you witness and you feel compelled to be a witness. Sometimes it can get kind of really heavy. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Trying to come to grips, to comprehend my own, a black man's tears, weeping for his brother, weeping for his son. I watched from the comfort of my uncomfortable blackness, from the comfort of my home. I watched an unofficial snuff film, death videoed, sanctioned and emboldened, murders spawn as it slowly creeped, peeped its swollen, deformed head from around the corner of the pale blue metal shield. I watched and wondered why. Why couldn't they hear that what I was hearing? The shackled screams from the hull of a wicked ship sailing the Atlantic on a sea of blood and blue. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Why these words seem so familiar to me. I can't breathe. If you watch close the expression, if you watch close the expression and listen to the scream, you will inhale the stench of death, the smell of puke and pavement. If you watch close the expression and listen to the scream, you will feel the road against your face. Asphalt, flesh and bone. The iron cuffs, the arms twisted behind, the knee in the back of your neck. I can't breathe? Will I one day be a policeman's trophy mounted on a wall? If you are gifted with human senses, anti-racist eyes, you will see a mother's child. You will see a mother's child. You will see a mother's child. But if not, there will be no sympathy, no sympathy, no sympathy for the beast that cannot breathe. Another black thing extinguished. I watched. An eerie mist covered the corner like a veil. The ghost of a freedman whispered from the branch of a hangman's tree. Listen, if you can hear me. It is tradition. It is tradition. A future foretold, passed down by a pale hooded head to their blue offspring in living rooms around kitchen tables. The bloodline of monsters. Comply or die. This nigga killed himself, just like all the others. I'm gonna need a minute. Conflicted. I feel sick and torn into pieces, torn into particles, atoms scattered into my ancestors' longing. A weary journey, but how do I continue on to bear witness, to make born poetry covered in the afterbirth placenta, blood of black bodies traced in chalk, soaked in familiar mourners' tears, lynched by a thin blue line, the umbilical of hate about their necks. And the irony, the irony, the irony, the art in death. For this too will become poem. Exquisite. Back in, I guess it was, I can't remember when it was, maybe April, I think. They had the march. They had the march in Gainesville. Went from Depot Park down to Bodega Plaza. I think it was organized by Ariel Lane and some others. I went out. I took a whole bunch of pictures and stuff. But I was there, and being there inspired this poem. It's called Exquisite. And there were marches all over the country during that time because of the spirit that erupted because of the death of George Floyd. And it was just a succession of George Floyd, Elijah, I think Breonna Taylor. I mean, they were all just, I couldn't write anything about Breonna because she reminded me of one of my daughter's friends, and it was just too painful. I couldn't, so I left that alone. Exquisite. A colossal poem writes the world. 100,000 million impassioned voices, raised fist and steadfast. Allies, bear witness to the chanting. An exquisite corpse screams into the unscripted a cappella anthems. boldly marching into the hot breath of the dragon's lair, beyond the tipping point of prayer, shouting holes into the fabric of the unjust, prying hope from the status quo's clenched teeth. A poem to you I do bequeath. When will the protesting cease? No justice, no justice, no justice, no peace. And here's a poem that I wrote on the death of Congressman John Lewis. And I shared it, and it was shared many times. And one of the coolest things about it, Dr. Gwendolyn Zahara Simmons, who was a veteran of the civil rights movement, asked could she share it with their I guess alumni organization. They have a museum of veterans of the Civil Rights Museum, and she wanted to share it with them, and maybe they would put it up in their museum. But it's called Dear John, and it's just a dedication to John Lewis that I wrote when he transitioned. It's called Dear John. Dear John, the instructions while reading this composition, if there were instructions, the instructions would be to hum silently, "Oh freedom, oh freedom. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. We shall overcome. I don't feel no ways tired. We've come too far. A change gonna come." Dear John, courageous young blood. He was called the conscience of the Congress, has flown away to eternal recline, to rest, to lie down, a gathering around the throne. Looking up at the brilliant right hand, smiling at and assured by the complexion of his brother, marveling in the light of the Nazarene, a long line of divine, beautiful outlaws. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Dear John, courageous young blood, arrested over 40 times for causing good trouble, upsetting the evil status quo. He too was bloodied, dressed in Sunday best, beaten with brutal baton on a bridge not long ago, just down yonder below the Mason-Dixon demon line, nailed to a Ku Klux cross. He sang sacred hymns. They whistled wicked Dixie, a sacrificial lamb. He lay his body down to tyranny, only to rise again in the sacred halls of justice. Dear John, courageous young blood, to be so young, to be so the embodiment of an old Negro spiritual and freedom song so full of power, a sharecropper's tune, a hope for the coming harvest, a story to tell, a legacy to leave, a blueprint for struggle, a cross to bear, a crown to wear, a love supreme, the ancestors' wildest dream. Dear John, courageous young blood. Thank you sincerely.
I think that might be kind of a good pause point to address a few of the questions that have come in. Is that all right with you?
With me?
Yes, you.
It's fine with me, yes.
Here. All right, so the first question is, has the housing crisis, meaning its full true origins, inspired any of your writing?
The housing crisis? The housing crisis, what do you mean by the housing crisis? Do you mean what there are so many aspects to the housing crisis? Homelessness,
My
people getting evicted from their homes because of the pandemic and that kind of thing, or just
I suspect that they're getting at the inequalities in housing with redlining and things like that. I suspect is what this.
not as of late, but I have some poetry centered around that issue, but I don't have it handy right now. But I haven't written anything about the housing crisis. I don't think this year. I did write a poem addressing universal health care that I was asked to compose something for the League of Women's Voters, who were doing a statewide campaign to try to get legislation to pass to expand Medicaid. So they asked me to write something, and I did for them.
So the person who asked that question has clarified. They're talking about housing segregation, poor quality, restrictive zoning history, on back to Jim Crow.
Oh yes, we also did. I was involved with a play at the University of Florida. We Brittany Caldwell and Jeffrey Profall and some others and actors. We did a play called From Color to Black, original production, and where we talked about that very thing, redlining, and just a lot of the historical systemic racism and everything like that. But it did address redlining and housing also, GI Bill, that kind of thing. What I'm thinking about it too, before I forget, yesterday was Veterans Day, and there was a gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, but he was pretty much, they tend to point to Emmett Till, his murder as the seminal event that galvanized the civil rights movement. But this, let me try to find it. He was a GI. He was a World War II veteran. He was in his uniform, and he, I think, was beaten and viciously beaten in South Carolina. He was a decorated veteran, and he was viciously. I had posted something about it the other day. His name is Isaac Woodard Jr. And this happened I think in 1946. He was beaten by South Carolina police, viciously beaten, and his face was shattered, and he was permanently blinded in both eyes. That has become like overshadowed by Emmett Till's brutal murder, but it is said that incident was really the beginning of the what we know now as the American Civil Rights Movement.
All right. So the next question is, so much trauma, historical, systemic, but also the many traumas of recent years. In what direct, practical ways can we begin to use poetry in our local communities to help heal some of this widespread trauma?
Say heal. You said heal. Was that heal the widespread trauma?
Yes, to help heal some of this widespread trauma.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if you noticed just now while I was reading. I mean, I've never been I've read some of these poems before, and I almost couldn't get through a couple of these tonight, and that was the first time that has happened. Uh, Indeed, it is heavy. But we try to use poetry, and spoken word and storytelling as catharsis for just sometimes, excuse me, sharing, just unloading that is inside you, sharing, having a space that you feel safe and you can share your feelings is a beautiful thing. And it could be lots of things. I know we had the last year we had our annual adult art speaks event, and there were sometimes the teens also participate in the adults, especially if their parents are participating. So we've had teens participate, but we had a lady. She was in her 90s, and her husband had passed some years back, but she was still in mourning after all these years, and she had written a poem that she had never shared with anybody, and but she came to Art Speaks, which is our annual poetry event for adults, and she shared that poem, and it was just it was healing for her just to share the words, to share the poem, to speak it. So we just try to provide a space. We try to provide a platform for whoever in the community to come out, and we encourage creative writing, and to just come out and just share your voice. I mean, it's not a competition or anything like that. I stress that because some people think that whenever you have some of these events, it's like a competition, but it's not a competition. It's a space for people to come and just express themselves through the art of poetry, spoken word, and storytelling. And just that alone can be healing.
I think that's a good segue into another one of the questions. So you've kind of already answered it, but if you have anything else you'd like to expand upon, are there any community venues or regularly scheduled events in Gainesville that give local poets and other artists a platform?
Yeah, there are a few. One of the longest running open mics in the area is at the Civic Media Center. I mean, they've been doing it's every Thursday. Now it's virtually. It's tonight Thursday. It's probably going on. I think maybe starting like 8 or 9 on Thursday. So every Thursday, before COVID, they were doing it. You know, you would be in the space at the Civic Media Center, but they've been doing an open mic for like 25 years, something like that. And it's the longest running open mic in Gainesville. And there were others throughout the community, but that's one of the reasons why I founded Art Speaks, was because when I began to get serious about my own artistic expression, my poetry, I started going around in the community, seeking out places like you're looking for open mics or just venues to just to find other poets. And what I found was there were people were like scattered out, and the people were very cliquish. And you had groups of poets that met, over here on a Wednesday. Then you had feminist poets that met over here on a Thursday. Then you had like Black revolutionary poets that met over there on Friday. Then you had, just had queer poets that met over here on one day. I'm like, oh man, everybody just all everywhere, So I'm like, it'd be really cool to just get all these people together, under one roof, just for an evening of to celebrate poetry and all these different voices. How cool would that be? And that's how Art Speaks was founded. But like I said, we do 2 events a year. Right now we do a teen event. There's normally take place in the spring around late February or early March. And we do it around that time, right before all that crazy testing takes place and the kids get all stressed out with that. So find early March is an ideal time for that. And I would, we were fortunate enough to have it this year. We had a wonderful program. We had the city of Gainesville co-sponsors it, and we had the visit Alachua and Alachua County helped us also. We brought a young poet, a young poet in from Baltimore to as our guest poet. But we normally have 20 teams from all around the county. We have a group that comes from Columbia County every year. I think they have a group called Method Poetry up in Lake City, Columbia County. It's just the kids, the teens are just so powerful because we give them a space and it's uncensored, and we just let them share their voice and freely, and the experience is very powerful. And we were just fortunate enough for that to take place this year. I think it was March 9th, 8th, and right before COVID closed everything down. We were not so fortunate. We couldn't hold our adult event, which is normally in the fall, and it's normally around August, whenever the students get back from fall classes start, and before football gets crazy. So it's normally like August 30th, 31st, or the first week in September, and it's always held at the Thomas Center. They help co-sponsor the event. So. But also there's on Facebook there's a Gainesville Poetry Collective. I have a Facebook page, and you can go there, and they list a lot of the poetry events around also. So Gainesville Poetry Collective, I think it is.
Okay. And we have somebody who's noted that there are also open mic nights at Flacco's on either Thursdays or Fridays.
Cool.
So next we have a couple of kind of related questions, so I'm going to kind of put them together. So one person would like to know why blue is invoked so often in your poetry. And the next person says, I'm struck by your use of color and other vivid visual language, and was wondering if you also use painting or sculpture or another medium to explore your perceptions, thoughts, and emotions in addition to poetry.
Oh, blue. I'm thinking about. I was off somewhere drawing stick figures and stuff. So, but blue. Matter of fact, my I'm working on another. I'm working on some work right now. Yeah. But blue. I just think blues, the color blue is it's the color of the sky. I mean, hot blue, which was a color that the Africans and my ancestors used to. You see a lot of houses that are painted or this color that is supposed to, like, I think, keep evil spirits away. The blues, someone is so dark that they're blue black. These are just, I guess, sometimes I don't know where stuff comes from. It just comes from, wherever it comes from. But yeah, blue. Blue has a spiritual meaning for me. So I can't really articulate it where it comes, why, but blue is there. Visual arts. I don't do any other. I don't have any other. I can't. I don't. I draw stick figures. I doodle. I doodle a lot with colors, but nothing. I mean, I wouldn't show it to anybody. Um, but we are having um, a project that I one of the local uh, art instructors, a mutual acquaintance, introduced me to an artist at UF who teaches art history, and he taught me how to. Matter of fact, right before a few weeks ago, I went out and he taught me, showed me printmaking, which I'm not very good at, but I do know the process now a little bit. So we're gonna start making prints, and what we want to do is, since he's a visual artist and makes prints, and I'm a literary artist, we want to maybe get together with teams in the Alachua County area to incorporate those two mediums, the poetry and the printmaking, and we're going to do something with that. Definitely want to do something with that because we've been talking about it, but COVID keeps us just things from happening. So, but there are a couple of things on the horizon with that, with the youth teens and in the area, printmaking and poetry. So yes, but me, I can't. I don't do anything. I have a big box of these colorful crayons and stuff and these markers that I doodle with, but you don't want to see it.
Let's see. What can you and we do to make poetry more accessible for everyone and make poetry more a part of our daily lives?
Hold that question because I'll forget. There is an artist that's really very dear to me. I love his work, and he also paints. His name is Eddie Suggs. Eddie Suggs. He's local artist, but we met through poetry, but he's also a painter. So, and his work reminds me of. I'm a country boy. At heart I'm a country boy from out in Alachua in the Bland community. So being on a farm is kind of like I can relate to that. And Eddie writes a lot about, I think, Southern type living and that kind of thing. And he's really cool, but he's also a wonderful artist. Now, that question, I forgot what it was, but you got it. How to make poetry more accessible, was that it?
Yes, let me pull it back up. Here it is. What can we do to make poetry more accessible for everyone and make poetry more a part of our daily lives?
Oh man, just I think poetry is accessible. I that's what I try to do, make it accessible. I mean, there this you have this idea that poetry is some lofty type I guess a medium that you know academic and that kind of thing. But no, poetry is cool. Really, 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 I'm serious. Poetry is really cool. Don't you think so? Poetry is cool, right?
I do. Yeah, poetry is
Yes, of course. Yeah, poetry is cool. But yeah, I just think just share it. Just share it. Share your work. If you are if you are a writer or a poet, my suggestion is just to write. You know, just sit down to write and to come to poetry events. Share it on social media. Share it on your different social media platforms. Be an advocate for poetry. That kind of thing. I think that's the best way. I mean, just you know, get some t-shirts that says poetry is cool on it or something like that, you know, and then yeah. And try to make it to Art Speaks events.
It's a great idea. We should get some poetry is cool t-shirts for the museum gift shop. All right, so we're at 8 o'clock now, so let's do just a couple more questions. We've got a few more in the chat box. Have you written any poems specific to small towns?
Specific to small towns? Yeah, I mean, my wife is in the background trying to make me remember because I wouldn't know what I would do without her. Yes, I'm a small town person, so yes, I have poems about just small town living, poems about nature. I have a poem about the Santa Fe River. You know, I write about everything. I mean, but I just there's some things that are just so pressing, so immediate that you have to give attention to it. You know, I mean, so you know, I can't write about the river if there's a dead body over there, or someone's murdered, or you know, that kind of thing, or there's just, you know, this, you know, I would love to just sit around and write about butterflies all the time.
So on the topic of things that have affected the way you write, somebody would like to know if being the poet laureate has affected your writing.
No, poor Laureate. The only thing being poor Laureate has affected is what I share on my social media platform. You know, I don't. No, not how I write. I mean, I'm gonna write how I write. What I may share, you know, there's some poems that I was going to share this evening that I had to pause. Maybe, I mean, it depends on the audience. I don't know. Depends on the audience. You know, and yes, and I'm representing. You know, Yeah, I mean, not. I don't think it's affected my. I hope not. I hope not. I I I try to be a truth teller and bear witness to whatever that is. So and I try to speak in a language that people understand. People, the way people actually talk. You know, and where I'm from anyway. So yeah, I don't. I was thinking about that there a while back. You know, how would that affect how I would write? But I don't think so. It may affect. I may write about it. I may not show it to you. But I'm gonna still, you know, write about whatever I write about. And there's some language. I cuss because people cuss. You know, I use colorful language. I don't believe that there are anything. I don't believe in there's such thing as bad words. Words are just words. I don't believe in things bad words. So you use language and you use words, and there can be appropriate to get a particular message across. They have words have their place, but I don't believe in anything like bad words at all. So
So we have another question. Somebody would like to know, what is the title of the second original poem you read this evening? And I believe, based on the time when this question came in first, I think she's talking about the more recent ones. I believe she's asking about the one after the one for Elijah.
I have no idea which poem that is. Can you tell me? Can the person is there? If the person's there, can they give me an idea what it was about?
Yeah. So Becca, if you could give us any more information about which one it was, and then we'll come back to your
Yeah,
question.
information about the content of it. And I can tell you the name of it.
Okay. Comply or die, she says. was a line that struck me.
Oh, that was 8 minutes, 46 seconds. That was, I think, the poem for George Floyd. That I think the title is 8 minutes, 46 seconds. I think that's the title to that.
Someone else said that they thought that might have been exquisite.
Exquisite? No, exquisite was about just protests. Comply or Die is the poem, 8 minutes, 46 seconds. I think. I'm pretty sure, but maybe not. I'm looking right now. Yeah. The Bloodline of Monsters, Comply or Die. That was the end. This nigga killed himself just like all the others. That's 8 minutes, 46 seconds is the name of that poem.
Okay.
The title, 8 minutes, 46 seconds.
Thank you. So we have 2 more questions. Before we get to those, I just wanted to remind the audience that if you would like to speak with the journalist who's been here this evening, you could send me a message and I will share your email address with her, or you can contact her directly. Her information is in the chat box. And you will be getting tomorrow an email with a brief, I think it's 2 or 3 question survey, just for your feedback on this program, to let us know, what you liked and what you'd like to see from us in the future. So now let's get to the last 2 questions. How can we create even more opportunities for using poetry to help heal trauma in different venues, schools, hospitals, organizations, nursing homes, etc., with different groups of people, maybe where they didn't previously exist?
Oh man, I know. There is a group, Arts in Medicine, at the University of Florida, and a young lady. Her name is Alana Jackson, and she's involved with Arts in Medicine. And I know she's trying to do some stuff right now because I think we're going to partner on something. But she's working on that kind of thing throughout the community, also with schools and everything. But can you repeat? Did I answer the question? I know it was about trauma and everything. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, so the question was about creating more opportunities in different venues to help heal trauma, maybe in groups where this wasn't used previously, I believe is what they were asking.
Yes, there are partnerships like with creating healthy communities, Arts and Medicine, but I think that if you want those type of those spaces, just go out and create it. Just go out and create that space. Don't wait for anyone else to do it because because they may not ever show up, and then you're just there waiting for this other person to come create that space. But if you feel there's a need for something, just go out and create it. If someone wants to contact me or for assistance or just to talk, I'm accessible. You can go to my Facebook page. My email address is there. My phone number is there. I'm cool. You can call me anytime if you want to talk about poetry or talk about art in general, but specifically poetry or some ideas about creating this space you're talking about. We can do it together. Just give me a call or drop me an email or a text or something.
All right. So for the last question tonight, we're taking it way back. I know a lot of your recent poetry has been about current events, but the question is, any writing on ancient heroes? Imhotep, Hatshepsut, Hannibal, Ramses the Great, or the general struggle to just, excuse me, hold on one moment. Or the general struggle to just teach Black history.
No, I haven't. I've just only began to start to read hieroglyphs and everything. So I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I haven't gone back that far, and the only probably won't go back that far unless I get a visitation from a spirit or something like that, which could possibly happen. Because I do receive things from ancestral voices sometimes, you know. But no, I haven't written anything about ancient Egypt or not directly. No, I kind of tend to I'm really influenced by the African American South and music, especially blues and the spirit, Negro spirituals and gospel, and the intersection between music and African American Black struggle and movement. So that's really what I write about and kind of drawn to a lot. The African American experience here in this colonial environment is what moves me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. It was a really, really powerful program. We really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us and taking the time to answer all of these questions from the audience.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I wasn't I was very nervous at first, but I got over it a little bit. And I'm just it's nice people want to ask questions, and I had some answers, so that worked out well. So I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation and the poetry, and just thank you so much, everyone who joined us this evening. Thank you very much. I mean, it would have been like it wouldn't have been as cool to just have Dixie and Caitlin here. I mean, but thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you. And for everybody in the audience, thank you for coming, and be on the lookout for that brief survey coming to you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Bye.